The winter sun spilled across the streets of Seoul, painting the towering skyscrapers in a dull golden light. The city was alive, bus horns blaring, shop doors opening, and people rushing in every direction with their heads bent low against the cold. But inside the tallest building in the district, the rhythm of the city was drowned by silence, the kind of silence that echoed against polished walls and shiny marble floors. Vera's shoes squeaked softly as she pushed her mop bucket across the grand lobby. Her blue janitor's uniform clung to her tall frame, and her braids, neatly tied at the back, swayed gently with each step. She had been in Korea for almost a year now, yet every day she still felt like a stranger. People barely looked at her. When they did, it was usually with a quick glance, a polite but distant nod, or sometimes a sharp frown if her mop was in their way. She never complained. She was used to being invisible. Life back home in Africa had not been easy. She had grown up in a small town where laughter mixed with hardship, where meals were sometimes skipped but love was never absent. Her mother had taught her dignity even in poverty: when you work, work as if the world is watching, even if no one sees. That lesson clung to Vera now, thousands of miles away. She scrubbed until the floors reflected her own face, polished glass until her arms ached, and carried her loneliness like a heavy bag she could not put down. That afternoon was quiet. Most executives were locked in boardrooms, their deep voices muffled behind closed doors. The lobby was empty except for the faint humming of heaters. Vera was polishing the wide glass wall near the windows when she noticed him. A little boy. He was seated in a wheelchair, his small hands resting weakly on the handles. His legs, thin and motionless, were covered by a soft gray blanket. His dark hair fell untidily across his forehead, and his pale face looked older than his years. But what struck Vera most was his eyes, large, brown, and filled with a sadness so heavy it seemed to weigh down the entire hall. He couldn't have been more than 8 years old, yet there he sat, all alone in the grand lobby of the wealthiest building in Seoul. Vera's heart tugged painfully. She placed her cleaning cloth aside and slowly walked toward him, unsure if she was even allowed. "Hello there," she said gently, kneeling so that her eyes met his. Her voice carried warmth, the kind of warmth only a woman who had known struggle could give. The boy blinked, startled. No one ever spoke to him first. His voice, when it came, was soft, almost brittle. "Nobody talks to me." Those 3 words struck Vera like lightning. She studied his face, his lonely eyes, and her chest tightened. "Well," she whispered with a smile, "I'm talking to you now. My name is Vera. What's yours?" Before the boy could respond, sharp footsteps echoed from the far corner of the hall. 2 tall bodyguards in black suits stormed forward, their expressions stern, their movements fast and intimidating. "Step away from him," one barked, his voice echoing across the marble. Vera's heart jumped. She quickly raised her hands. I'm sorry. I wasn't doing anything wrong." He just looked. But before she could finish, one of the guards stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. His eyes were cold, as if she was nothing but dirt under his polished shoes. "He is not for people like you to speak to." The boy's small voice tried to cut through the tension. "No. Leave her." "Enough," the guard snapped, reaching for the wheelchair to wheel him away. But then, another voice entered the room. A voice deeper, calmer, but so commanding that everyone froze in place. "Stop." The word echoed like thunder. The bodyguards stiffened immediately, lowering their heads. From across the lobby walked a tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit. His hair was slicked back, his face sharp and unreadable. And his stride was one of someone who owned not only the building, but perhaps half the city as well. Yet for all his strength and wealth, there was something hollow in his eyes, the look of a man who had lost too much. The boy's eyes lit faintly. "Appa," he whispered, almost with relief. Vera felt her knees weaken. The realization struck her, this boy wasn't just any child. He was the son of Kang Jae-won, the Korean billionaire whose name filled headlines, whose businesses shaped entire markets. A man so rich that his wealth was untouchable, but whose life was wrapped in mystery and cold silence. Kang Jaiwan's eyes fell on Vera. He studied her with an intensity that made her heart pound. "You spoke to my son?" Her throat went dry. "Yes, sir. He was alone. I only wanted to keep him company." The guards shifted uneasily, waiting for a command. But before Jaiwan could say anything more, the boy tugged weakly at his father's sleeve. His voice, though small, carried desperate pleading. "Appa, can she stay?" The words hung heavy in the air, shocking even the guards. The boy never asked for anyone. He never spoke to strangers. Yet here he was, begging for a woman he had just met to remain by his side. Jaiwan's eyes darkened, confusion flickering behind them. For a long moment, he said nothing. The silence was so thick that Vera felt like she could hear her own heartbeat echoing off the walls. But deep inside, she felt something stir. She didn't know why, but she sensed this wasn't just a random encounter. Meeting this boy felt like a crossing of paths written by fate, a moment that could not be undone. And as she knelt there, looking into his sad brown eyes, Vera's life, the life of a poor African janitor working in a country that barely noticed her, had just shifted. She didn't know it yet, but nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Vera arrived at work earlier than usual. She hadn't been able to sleep well the night before. Her mind kept replaying the boy's words, "Appa, can she stay?" Why had he chosen her, a janitor no one noticed? And why had his father, Kang Jaiwan, one of the most powerful men in Korea, not dismissed her instantly? Instead, he had simply walked away with his son, leaving the question hanging in the air like a mystery waiting to be solved. Vera tried to push the thoughts aside as she scrubbed the stairway railings. She hummed softly, the way she always did to pass the hours, when suddenly a voice startled her. "You. The chairman wants to see you." It was one of the guards from yesterday, his expression hard. Vera's heart thumped. "Me? Why? Don't ask questions. Just follow." Her hands trembled as she set down her rag and followed him through the maze of glass halls. Workers in suits stared curiously as she passed, whispering to each other. Why would a janitor be summoned to the chairman? At last, they stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. The guard knocked once and then pushed it open. Inside was a private lounge, warmer and quieter than anywhere else in the building. Soft golden lamps glowed, leather chairs surrounded a polished table, and a large window looked out at the skyline. And there he was, Kang Jaiwan. He sat in silence, his son beside him in the wheelchair. Unlike yesterday, Jaiwan's suit jacket was unbuttoned, his tie slightly loose, as if he had spent the night awake. His eyes looked tired, but sharp enough to cut. "Sit," he said simply. Vera hesitated, then obeyed, perching nervously on the edge of a chair. The boy smiled faintly when he saw her. "You came." Her heart softened. "Of course. How are you today?" "I'm okay, better now." Jaiwan's gaze moved from his son to Vera, unreadable. His deep voice carried both authority and fatigue. "You're not like the others." Vera blinked. "Sir?" He leaned back, folding his arms. "Most people either pity my son or fear him. They whisper when they think I cannot hear. They look at him and see a burden. Yesterday, you looked at him differently. As if he was human." The words made Vera's throat tighten. She glanced at the boy, who was looking down at his hands. "Because he is human," she said softly. "He's just a child. A lonely child." Silence filled the room. Jaiwan's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath before speaking again, his voice lower this time, almost bitter. "My wife left me years ago. When our son's condition became worse, she ran away. She couldn't handle the shame. My parents abandoned us too. They wanted me to remarry, to save face, to protect the Kang family image. When I refused, they cut ties. They all thought I would collapse under the weight of raising him alone. But I did not. I stayed. I worked. For him. Vera's chest ached at his confession. She had read stories about the rich and powerful, but none of them sounded like this, a man who could buy anything yet was abandoned because of his child. She lowered her voice. Money can build towers, sir. But it cannot build love. And love is what he needs most. For the first time, Kang Jaiwan's mask of steel cracked just slightly. His eyes softened, though only for a moment. The boy tugged at Vera's sleeve. Will you tell me another story? About Africa? Her lips curved into a small smile. Of course. She leaned closer. In my village, when the moon was full, children would gather around the fire. We would listen to elders tell stories of lions who could speak, and rivers that sang. And sometimes, when the drums played, even the stars above seemed to dance with us. The boy's eyes lit up, wonder flickering across his pale face. He laughed quietly, a sound so rare that even his father turned his head in surprise. It was the first time Kang Jaiwan had heard his son laugh so freely in years. But not everyone was pleased. Outside the door, two executives lingered in the hall, whispering furiously. Why is the chairman letting that janitor near him? One hissed. This could damage our image. Worse, the other said with narrowed eyes, if she continues to influence the boy, what if she gains the chairman's trust? She could interfere with the company, even the inheritance. We can't allow it. She has to go. Inside, Vera felt none of this. She was too focused on the boy, on the way his shoulders relaxed when she spoke, on how his loneliness seemed to melt little by little. When she rose to leave, the boy clutched her hand tightly. Please come again tomorrow. She hesitated, glancing nervously at Jaiwan. Would he allow it? The billionaire's eyes locked with hers. His voice was calm, but there was something unspoken beneath it. Come. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Vera bowed her head. Yes, sir. As she left the lounge, her heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't understand why fate had pulled her into the life of a billionaire and his lonely son. All she knew was that something was changing, not just for the boy, but for herself too. And far down the hall, the two executives exchanged a dark glance. If we don't stop her soon, one muttered, she will ruin everything. Little did they know, the janitor they plotted against was about to become the light in the darkest corners of the Kang family's life. Days turned into weeks, and Vera's life changed in ways she never imagined. What began as a chance meeting in the lobby became a daily rhythm. Every morning, after finishing her first round of cleaning, she was summoned to the private lounge or the rooftop garden where Kang Jaiwan's son waited eagerly for her stories. The boy, whose name was Minjun, clung to her presence like a flower clings to sunlight. He wanted to hear everything about Africa. The wide rivers, the drums, the stories of lions and clever tortoises. Sometimes, Vera would hum songs from her childhood, and Minjun's eyes would sparkle as if he were hearing magic itself. Jaiwan often sat nearby, silently watching. At first, his expression remained cold, his arms folded across his chest. But Vera noticed something change with each passing day. The lines of weariness on his face softened when Minjun laughed. His shoulders, usually stiff with the weight of power, seemed to relax when Vera entered the room. Still, there was always a wall around him, as if he refused to let anyone too close. One crisp afternoon, Vera pushed Minjun's wheelchair into the garden terrace. The winter sun was weak, but the boy tilted his head back, enjoying its warmth. Vera, he whispered, do you think I'll ever walk again? The question pierced her heart. She crouched beside him, gently holding his small hand. Do you believe you can? He hesitated. Sometimes, but Appa doesn't. He doesn't say it, but I can see it in his eyes. Vera smiled softly. Then let us try. Even if it's just one step. That day, for the first time, she encouraged him to stand. She placed her hands firmly under his arms and urged him to push against the ground. His legs trembled, his face twisted in pain, and after only a second he collapsed back into the chair. Tears filled his eyes. I can't, he whispered. Vera wiped his tears with her sleeve. Yes, you can. The strongest trees begin as tiny seeds. We will try again tomorrow. From the shadows, Jaiwan had been watching, his jaw clenched. His son's effort broke something inside him, a pain he had hidden for years. That night, he stood by Minjun's bed as the boy slept, his small chest rising and falling. Slowly, Jaiwan's hand brushed his son's hair. My son. I'm sorry I gave up on hope. The next day, Minjun tried again. Then again. Slowly, day by day, he managed to balance longer. Vera was always there, whispering encouragement, never letting him feel like a failure. Weeks later, the impossible happened. It was a chilly morning when Vera brought Minjun into the garden once more. His face was determined, his lips pressed tightly. Today, he said firmly. She nodded. Today. With her support, Minjun pushed himself up. His knees trembled, but he gritted his teeth. One shaky step. Then another. He stumbled forward, falling into Vera's arms, but he had walked. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then Minjun's voice broke through, filled with joy. Appa. I walked. Jaiwan, who had been standing nearby, froze. His breath caught in his chest. For years, he had resigned himself to his son's wheelchair, to endless hospitals and therapists who gave little hope. Now, here was his boy, laughing, stumbling, but walking. Something broke inside him. For the first time in years, tears blurred his vision. He stepped forward, scooping Minjun into his arms. His voice cracked as he whispered, my son, my strong son. Vera's own eyes filled with tears. She stepped back quietly, giving them their moment. Yet in her heart, she knew, she had witnessed a miracle. But miracles often come with shadows. That evening, when Vera returned to her janitor's room in the basement, she found her mop knocked over, her things scattered. Her stomach tightened. Something felt wrong. The next morning, as she pushed her cleaning cart into the lobby, 2 executives appeared with security officers. There she is, one of them barked. Search her cart. Confused, Vera stepped back. What's happening? The officers pulled open her bucket, and froze. Inside, tucked beneath her rags, was a thick envelope stuffed with cash. Vera gasped, her hands trembling. That's not mine. I swear, I don't know how that got there. The executives smirked. Caught red-handed. A thief pretending to be innocent. Before she could explain, she was dragged toward the security office. Her heart pounded. She thought of Minjun. What would he think if she disappeared without explanation? But Minjun found out sooner than they expected. The boy burst into the hall, wheeled quickly by his bodyguards. His small voice rang out, desperate and furious. Stop. She didn't steal anything. She saved me. The entire corridor froze. Even the security guards hesitated. Then, another voice boomed through the silence, Kang Jaiwan's. Enough. He stepped into view, his presence silencing the entire building. His eyes burned with fury as he looked at the executives. Do you dare accuse her without proof? They stammered. Be but chairman, the money. Do you think I am blind? Jaiwan snapped. Do you think I don't know who plants traps in my building? His glare cut through them like ice. If you ever lay a finger on her again, you will answer to me. The executives paled, their knees nearly buckling. Security quickly released Vera, bowing their heads in shame. Vera stood frozen, her breath shaking. She had never seen the billionaire like this, not cold, not detached, but burning with a fire that terrified even his own board. Minjun rolled toward her, tears in his eyes. I told them you didn't do it. Appa believed me. Jaiwan's gaze met hers. His voice was lower now, but it carried a weight she could not ignore. No one touches you. Not while you are under my protection. Her heart thudded in her chest. For the first time, she realized something dangerous and beautiful. The billionaire wasn't just protecting her out of gratitude. He was beginning to care. But caring came with risks. Outside the hall, the executives whispered in fear. "If the chairman truly trusts her," one muttered, "then she is more dangerous than we thought." The others' eyes narrowed. "Then we must destroy her, before she destroys us." Little did they know, their schemes would only pull Vera deeper into the heart of the Kong family, and closer to the man whose life she was changing forever. The morning sun painted the city in gold, and for the first time in years, laughter echoed in the mansion of the Korean billionaire. The lonely walls that had once been filled with silence and sadness now carried the sound of music, joy, and hope. Vera stood by the window, watching little Min-jun, the boy she had once found sitting hopelessly in his wheelchair, take careful steps across the wide living room. His tiny feet touched the polished floor with determination, and each step was a miracle. The bodyguards and maids stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Appa! Look at me!" Min-jun shouted joyfully, wobbling as he walked toward his father. His little face glowed with pride. The billionaire, Mr. Ji-hoon, dropped the glass of wine he was holding. His heart stopped for a second. Tears filled his eyes as he rushed forward, not caring about the expensive carpet now stained by broken glass. He scooped Min-jun into his arms, hugging him tightly. "My son, you're walking. You're walking." Ji-hoon sobbed loudly, his voice shaking. For a man who was feared in boardrooms and respected across Korea's business world, it was the first time anyone had seen him so vulnerable. Vera felt tears running down her cheeks. She had witnessed Min-jun's struggles, the pain, the tears, the frustration of not being able to move freely like other children. And now, she was watching a victory that was bigger than money, bigger than wealth. But just as joy filled the room, an unexpected twist arrived. The doors burst open. And standing there was a group of people, Ji-hoon's estranged family. His younger brother, his sisters, and even his parents, who had abandoned him years ago because they thought he had lost his fortune. They looked shocked. The mansion was more beautiful than they remembered. The air smelled of life again. And now, they saw the billionaire they had betrayed, standing strong with his son in his arms, and a beautiful African woman by his side. "Appa," his younger sister whispered, shame filling her voice. We came back. We didn't know." Ji-hoon's face hardened. For years, their betrayal had haunted him. When his wife had walked out, they too had turned their backs, leaving him to raise his sick child alone. They had laughed behind his back, calling him cursed, saying he was finished. "Leave," Ji-hoon said coldly, holding his son closer. "You were not here when I needed you. You will not come back now that things are good." The family fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness, but Min-jun turned and said in his small but clear voice, "Appa, we don't need them. We have Vera." The word struck Ji-hoon like thunder. He turned to look at Vera. She stood shyly, her hands folded in front of her, unsure if she belonged in this moment. But Ji-hoon walked to her, his eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, love. "Vera," he said softly, in front of everyone, "you gave me back my son. You gave me back life. You showed me joy when I had nothing but pain. From today, you are no longer a janitor. You are part of this family." Gasps filled the room. The staff clapped, and Min-jun clung to Vera's neck, whispering, "Amma." Vera's knees weakened. She had come to Korea with nothing but a mop, a bucket, and dreams of survival. And now, she was being embraced as family by the man everyone feared and respected. The rejected family was escorted out, their tears falling on the cold steps of the mansion. For once, they realized money wasn't everything, love was. Days turned into weeks, and the mansion continued to change. The boy who once lived in the shadows was now running around the garden, playing football with Vera. Ji-hoon, who once drowned his loneliness in wine, now spent evenings laughing with them, learning to cook African meals as Vera taught him. And one beautiful night, under the glowing lanterns of the garden, Ji-hoon took Vera's hand and looked into her eyes. I don't just want you here for Minjun, he whispered. I want you here for me. Will you be my partner, Vera? Her heart raced. Tears blurred her sight, but her smile said it all. Yes, Ji-hoon. 1,000 times, yes. The boy clapped happily, shouting, now I have Appa and Amma. From that day, the story of a poor African janitor who met a lonely Korean billionaire's son in a wheelchair became the most whispered tale in the city. It wasn't just about wealth or status, it was about love, healing, and second chances. And Vera? She was no longer just a janitor. She was the woman who turned a broken family into a whole one, and the world into a brighter place for a little boy who had once been forgotten.
Hello besties, this story teaches that true wealth is not in money but in love, kindness and compassion. Vera, though poor and unnoticed, carried the richest gift of all. A caring heart, her humility and selflessness healed the loneliness of a billionaire son and reminded his father that happiness is found in family, not material things. It shows that kindness can break barriers of class, race and status, and sometimes the people society overlooks are the ones with the greatest power to transform lives. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.